The Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, and Somali pirates are also causing trouble. After the Strait of Hormuz was blocked, ships crowded the Red Sea as an alternate route, prompting Somali pirates to intensify their activities. Let's examine this situation more closely today. Let's take a look right away. As of May 3rd, the UK Maritime Trade Operations reported a total of 4 suspected pirate threats within 72 hours in the Gulf of Aden on the Red Sea route, and advised ships passing through nearby waters to be cautious. If we include the past 2 weeks, there have been 7 attacks or threats. UK Maritime Trade Operations reports Somali pirates recently seized 3 ships. The Critical Threats Project, a US think tank, announced on April 30th that the rate of pirate-related incidents off the coast of Somalia has reached its highest level since 2012, when it previously peaked. The UK Maritime Trade Operations has raised the threat level for merchant ships near Somalia to critical. There is still no clearly confirmed official reason as to why Somali pirates have suddenly increased their activities like this. Given the current situation, the main issue appears to be a shift in maritime energy flow. As the Strait of Hormuz has become unstable due to military tensions, oil tankers that used to use this route have been forced to choose alternative paths. As a result, the strategic value of the Red Sea route has risen sharply. This change is a very important signal from the perspective of pirates. Previously, ships were dispersed, but now they have started to concentrate in a specific area, which is the waters leading to the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea. As ship density increases, there are more targets and a higher chance of successful attacks. Especially in the case of oil tankers, even a single successful hijacking can bring in a huge ransom, so for pirate organizations, the environment has become one where the potential reward relative to the risk has increased significantly. In addition, Saudi Arabia's response strategy is also playing an important role as a key variable. When Saudi Arabia could no longer export crude oil from its eastern fields through the Strait of Hormuz, it started transporting large amounts to Yanbu port on the Red Sea via the east-west pipeline. This pipeline is vital infrastructure, able to transport millions of barrels of crude daily, leading to more and larger oil tankers leaving Yanbu port. This situation creates a very favorable environment for pirates. That's because high-value targets that follow fixed routes and move repeatedly are being continuously supplied. In particular, ships departing from Yanbu port must travel south along the Red Sea, pass through the Gulf of Aden, and head toward India. In this process, they inevitably have to pass through waters near Somalia. For pirates, this creates a structure where it's easy to predict attack points. Currently, we can't respond properly because each country's naval fleet is focused on the Houthi missile threat and the Middle East war, creating a security vacuum in the Gulf of Aden. As a result, pirates are now able to carry out their activities with less surveillance than before. The increase in pirate activity like this is not a coincidence, but rather the result of 3 factors working together: changes in maritime logistics structures, an increase in high-value targets, and a surveillance vacuum. With ongoing energy flow through the Red Sea, targeting attempts will likely persist. And according to various media reports, there is a possibility that the Houthi rebels may be behind it. The Critical Threats Project, an American think tank, stated in a report that Al-Shabaab, a Somali Islamic extremist group that made significant profits from past piracy activities, has recently had to strengthen its ties with the Houthi rebels through arms smuggling and training. So in 2024, Al-Shabaab even proposed that if the Houthi rebels support them first, they would strengthen Somali coastal piracy activities. There have often been cases that seem to show cooperation. According to a Yugopost news report, the Yemeni Coast Guard announced on May 2nd that the oil tanker MT Eureka had been hijacked and was heading toward the Gulf of Aden. However, some analysts have said that this shows a cooperative relationship where the Houthi rebels provide a geopolitical shield and advanced satellite navigation information, while Somali armed groups deploy ground forces or small boats. While it's still just a possibility, it's hard to dismiss that Somali pirates and Houthi rebels may be cooperating. You should examine why this is dangerous. Currently, the Red Sea route is the only remaining passage, as the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, leaving major energy importers like Korea with almost no alternatives. A structure has been formed where Saudi Arabia sends crude oil produced in the east to the Yanbu port in the west, and then ships that volume to Asia again through the Red Sea. Korea has used this route and transported crude oil 3 times already. This means that Korea's energy supply is now directly dependent on this route. Pirate activity is quickly rising in the key Gulf of Aden area. Even recent reports show that there have been a series of ship hijackings and major attempts, and in fact, there have been cases where even oil tankers have been taken away. This isn't an isolated event, but a repeated pattern. More importantly, the attack methods are now more sophisticated than before. It's not just a matter of approaching with small boats anymore. There are indications that they're targeting specific ships and moving accordingly. With the analysis that the Houthi rebels are involved, the level of risk rises even further. The Houthis are a group that has already proven their missile and drone attack capabilities in the Red Sea area. If they are providing route information or location data to pirate organizations and the pirates are actually boarding and carrying out kidnappings, then the difficulty of responding inevitably increases significantly. Especially if GPS-based tracking or vessel identification information is also being shared, it becomes virtually impossible for ordinary merchant ships to defend themselves. In this situation, South Korea's options are drastically reduced. If we continue to use the Red Sea route, we are exposed to threats from pirates and armed groups. On the other hand, if we choose the detour route, transportation time increases and costs skyrocket. Rising freight rates and insurance premiums directly raise crude oil prices, leading to higher domestic oil costs and industry-wide expenses. Military response is another important factor to watch. The Cheonghae unit is now in the Gulf of Aden, but the situation has changed from before. This is not simply a response to pirates, but a threat connected to a quasi-military organization called the Houthis. In this case, the level of response will inevitably increase, and there is a possibility that discussions about deploying additional forces or expanding the scope of operations may arise. This may cause diplomatic pressure. As the United States urges allies to join maritime operations, South Korea might also have to decide. There is one key point in the current situation. Energy transport routes are becoming increasingly dangerous. If the Strait of Hormuz is blocked and even the Red Sea becomes unstable, the entire global supply chain will be at risk. That's why resolving this issue quickly is essential. Another round of international military operations may be needed to eliminate pirates. If the Red Sea route is blocked as well, it could be a real nightmare for Korea. If both the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea are blocked, there will be only one option left. It's the long-distance route around the Cape of Good Hope in southern Africa, which greatly increases sailing distance compared to the route through the Suez Canal and Red Sea. Usually, the sailing period extends by about 10 days to over 2 weeks, increasing fuel use and operating costs. Because labor, fuel, and maintenance costs add up during transit, transportation unit costs will rise sharply. Also, that doesn't mean there are no pirates in West Africa. The issue is, these higher costs don't stop with shipping companies. Shipping companies pass higher costs to cargo owners, who then include them in product prices. In the case of crude oil, both refining costs and transportation costs rise at the same time, directly affecting domestic oil prices. If container logistics also use the same route, the situation becomes even more complicated. Transportation delays and rising costs will affect electronic products, auto parts, and food items at the same time. Additionally, more ships may stop operating entirely. If shipping companies find the risks too high, some may cut back or halt operations on those routes. In this case, as the supply itself decreases, there may be a shortage of goods in the market. Especially in the case of strategic resources like crude oil, an imbalance in supply and demand is highly likely to lead directly to a sharp increase in prices. In addition, the extra time required due to longer shipping routes is also a factor. Delayed logistics arrivals make inventory management harder and can disrupt industrial production schedules. Industries like automobile, semiconductor, and refining, which rely heavily on supply chains, may face production disruptions. Another point to consider here is that the competition among countries to secure energy could become even more intense. If shipping routes become unstable, countries may secure supplies by increasing long-term contracts or preemptively securing supplies from specific regions. In this process, if countries with relatively higher purchasing power secure supplies first, smaller importing countries may end up having to pay higher prices or may not be able to secure supplies at all. At the same time, some countries may release their strategic reserves or, on the contrary, increase their reserves, which could create additional volatility in the market. If this happens, the crude oil market is likely to quickly shift from simple price increases to a structure of competition between countries. If this situation continues, it could lead to instability throughout the entire maritime logistics sector. If crude oil and container logistics are disrupted simultaneously, the global supply chain will face pressure. The current changes in the Red Sea are not just regional, but could alter the entire global logistics structure.